Okay, great. Let's just get started here. So let me put the screen. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all for coming to our webinar today. The Junior Economics Club of Chicago is honored to have Sarah from the Lyriq Music School. Sorry, am I cutting out?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Or not, but if I am, then just enter it in the chat or something. But yeah, no, we're so thankful to have Sarah from the Lyriq Music School of Chicago, the Critical Thinking Child, and Katie from KS Style Consultancy. The Junior Economic Club, JEC, was founded in 2014 and is an entirely student-run nonprofit that introduces high school students to business and economics through member engagement events, forums, and community initiatives. The club has over 130 students representing over 30 high schools across Chicago, as well as chapters in 9 cities across 4 countries. You can learn more about the club and admissions at junioreconomicclub.org. So my name is Anushka. I am an ambassador here at JEC. I am also a freshman at Walter Payton College Prep. And I just wanted to give a little bit background on why I chose this event and what it means to me. So yeah, JEC has an array of events. I'm pretty sure you've all checked it out. They're really informative. I love them, and I've learned so much from them. But you know, there's a pandemic, and it's just crazy how everything's changed. And I also wanted to focus a little bit about entrepreneurship, because I think that, you know, now more than ever, you know, entrepreneurs are, you know, facing different times, and, you know, it's really challenging and rough. And then I also wanted to, you know, talk about, you know, local entrepreneurs, and more than that, female entrepreneurs. And as someone, you know, who's a female entrepreneur, but there's so many inspirations. And I think it was just a great idea to talk about local female entrepreneurs and how they're doing during a pandemic. So I'd like to introduce our guest speakers. Again, Sarah Ma from the Lyriq Music School of Chicago, Lemi Ola Erinkitola from the Critical Thinking Child, and Katie Schuppler from KS Style Consulting. Let me now present my screen. Second. Let's see. Give me a moment here, sorry. I don't think you can see my screen. Okay. I think I need to exit my full screen for this to work. Can you guys see my screen now? Okay, great.
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be great if you guys can just give an introduction about, you know, your name. Again, I kind of gave an introduction for you guys already, but like, just, you know, what are your businesses, what your enterprises are, and yeah, and it would be great if you guys can go in the order of Sarah, Katie, and Lemi, so that way it's just simple. But yeah.
Great, I'll start. My name is Sarah Ma. I'm the owner of Lyriq Music School. We are located in the North Center neighborhood near the intersection of Lincoln, Damon, and Irving. We've been open for 4 years, and we specialize in private and small group lessons from ages 5 and up.
Hi guys, I'm Katie. I own KS Style Consulting, which is a wardrobe consulting firm. We work with men and women of all ages, shapes, and sizes. We do closet cleanouts, personal shopping, lookbook appointments, and right now with the pandemic, a lot of in-home shopping too. So we don't have an actual location because we go to the client. And like meet at stores. So we've been doing this for about 10 years now.
Great, I'll go next. My name is Lemi Ola Erinkitola, and born and raised in Chicago. And essentially, the critical thinking child was birthed out of the need for parents and helping parents with getting their child academically prepared. So that's what we do. We support students from pre-K all the way up to students in high school now. We're 100% virtual, and we have been supporting parents and families in the academic arena for over a decade now.
Great. Yeah, we might have just covered, actually, never mind. Yeah, so how did you guys get into your business? Growing up, did you find interest in your future occupation or enterprise? Yeah, like when you were our age, did you know that you wanted to do this, or did you have an interest in this prior?
We're still going in order, I'm assuming. So I actually, for the longest time, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. I thought living on a boat in the middle of the ocean would be amazing, and that's what I wanted to do. So that's what my dream was. And my other second dream was I always wanted to be a Peace Corps volunteer. And so, and I always did music, right? So like I was always singing, and I was also in band. So I always did both, which is really difficult to do with the way high school is set up because you only are allowed a certain amount of electives. So I had to advocate for myself to say, I want to be able to do band and choir, and I can handle the coursework. Just let me do it. So when I went to college, I actually got a degree in chemical engineering. I felt like I could always do music, but I might not be able to support myself. So I wanted to have something that felt like I could fall back on no matter what, and be able to just make a living. I come from a very pragmatic family. So I decided maybe living on a boat wasn't the greatest thing ever. So I decided to do engineering. And then I taught chemistry for 2 years in East Africa and Tanzania. When I came back, I did work for Abbott Labs. So I did get the corporate experience and working for a big company. But after I had my children, I started doing more and more music, and I just felt like my husband was very encouraging of starting my own business. And so at that point, I decided to do a complete career pivot, and I love music, and I love encouraging young people to do music. And so I just thought this would be a good fit for my personality, and also just I'm super organized, and I just love all the details of business. Thank you.
For me, I always loved fashion, probably starting like late middle school, definitely into high school, and then college is where it really came into fruition. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad has his own business, an insurance agency, which he's owned for, I think now, my dad is in his late 80s, about 60 years. So he's always been my inspiration and proof that you can do anything that you set your mind to. So when I graduated high school, I went to a fashion and business school near Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and got a 4-year degree in fashion merchandise management and business. And then during that time, I worked at Victoria's Secret for a while, so got some of that corporate experience. And then I also worked as a style director at a local women's boutique in Milwaukee, which was really, really great. Working one-on-one with clients, doing fashion shows, I think working there made me have the final decision of what I wanted to do and start my business. After that, after I graduated, I moved to Chicago within 6 months, and I contemplated working in retail again. I did stay, and then I said, what are you doing? You moved here for a reason. So then in the middle of a recession, in 2010, I decided it's a great idea to start a business. So that's kind of how I got started, and it's been going well. Lots of ups and downs, especially this year. So.
Well, I did not really have a clue in high school that I was going to start a business. High school was an awkward time for me. I was a little bit socially awkward in that, I found myself being the only African American inside of my science, my biology, and my physics class. So I always felt like a little different than my peers. So when I graduated from high school, I knew I was good in the sciences. So literally, I looked to my older brother to say, what should I do with my life? And at that time, there was this big book called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. It was like a career book. You open up the book and it gave you just thousands and thousands of ideas about how to plan your career. Well, I went to that book and I looked up things related to science and wasn't really sure about becoming a doctor. So I figured the next best thing would be to enter as a hospital administrator. So I decided to follow that path in healthcare and shoot to be a hospital administrator. But over time, the industry in healthcare was changing dramatically, and that particular position was fading. And at this point, I was pursuing my bachelor's in science in health administration. They even changed it from hospital administration to health administration, and then later managed care. So I still followed that path, just changing my expectation of what I would do and understanding that I didn't have to just work in a hospital. So what I ended up doing was pursuing that career and getting my master's and having fabulous jobs in the healthcare industry. And the way in which I did that is that I really, it was a little bit of luck, but then also some opportunities in that I worked for a consulting firm. And that brought in a lot of different people who didn't have the same background than I did. So I was able to learn from them. So I spent 25 incredible years in the healthcare administration, working alongside of Fortune 500 companies and helping them to analyze their data, looking and working with physicians and doctors to help them understand the implications of claims and government regulations such as HIPAA. So it was very exciting. It was more like an adventure. But I found myself, after 25 years, really looking at, I'm hitting this glass ceiling and how can I sort of move up? I became one of the only African-American managers that was actually doing the type of job that I was doing in the nation. And so I really felt kind of also isolated. What really pushed me, and I have to say pushed because I think that if I didn't get that push, I don't know if I would be an entrepreneur today. So what really pushed me was the fact that I became a parent. And when I became a parent, I also, at the same time as I was trying to build my own career, just really was focusing on giving my children a head start. As my children started to navigate and go through the preschool and elementary pathway here in the United States, I realized very early on that that they were going to need to be challenged in order to be prepared for the future. So I quickly started doing some research, and that research led me into finding some incredible resources that I didn't know existed and some wonderful mentors. And then by doing that, I was able to spark and use those skills to start up a tutoring company and begin to tutor not only my children in a way in which I knew would prepare them for success, but then also extend that to other parents who was interested in having the same like-mindedness as I did. So that became the birth of my entrepreneurship, if you will, and it's just been incredible since then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what you all have done has been incredible. And I think that all entrepreneurs can relate that it's way harder than it sounds about, getting it off of its feet and like just starting something up. It's a lot of work. And I think it's important to read the statistics on the slide. that only 17% of startups have a female founder. I think that's, that's crazy, and that female founders get less than 2% of venture capital dollars, and young girls are not raised to be risk takers. And I mean, this has been consistently proven throughout society, by all these statistics, that, there are not a lot of female entrepreneurs and there are not a lot of female business owners. But we are so lucky to have these three, women here today, and, to share their story. It's a big deal. And so on to the next slide. When did you start out? When you started out, what were the hardest things getting started with your enterprises and for it to get moving?
For me, it was definitely this feeling. It's called imposter syndrome. So you feel like you don't really belong, or like you're kind of trying to talk yourself out of it. Talking probably to your previous slide, about we're not encouraged to be risk takers. Unlike some people, I was not from an entrepreneurial family, and so it was a really big mind shift to say, like, this is okay, I can take this risk. And so it was really about, in the beginning, more of a conversation with myself, like, you can do this, it's okay, it's going to be okay. And just to always go back to, like, your mission statement, like, what are we trying to do here? Am I providing for my customer? Is my customer service good? And always just trying to make sure that you have your own validation, especially if you're working alone. I think that you need to find people, mentors that you can talk to, that can encourage you.
Well, like I said before, I started this in a recession. So that alone was just really, really hard. And then I started my business when I was 23 years old, which now looking back to me sounds crazy and weird. So that's always funny to me. But one of the biggest things was just getting my name out there. I would go to events, try to network with people. Instagram really wasn't like a thing, so connecting on social media and promoting yourself that way wasn't really an option. I would send out mailing lists using like the mailing service that my dad uses for his company to like the wealthier suburbs around me, and the wealthier areas of Chicago. And sometimes I would just even drive out there and put them in their mailboxes because I was 23 and didn't have money. So spending money on postage was kind of a lot. But yeah, I think just like getting my name out there was the hardest part. And then another thing to overcome once I started finally getting those very random clients was my age. People would be like, you look like you're 16. Why? Are you sure you're 23? So it was a lot of criticism from people, not thinking that I had the experience to help them. But in time, I proved them wrong. So yeah, I would say those were like the hardest things getting started for sure.
I think for me, Sarah kind of hit the nail on the head when she said imposter syndrome, because I definitely experienced that, especially, 25 years in the same field, a successful career in healthcare, but it's someone else's dime, right? It's my time, but someone else's dime. But when you're out on your own, it's your dime and it's your time. And so one of the hardest things was definitely shoring up, income to be able to, just sustain myself, take care of my family. So just getting over the fear of failure. I'm just going to be honest with you. So it was a scary time to, not work for someone else and, really believe in yourself and know that you can step out on your own and bootstrap this idea and move forward. So that was some of the, in the early stages, was just looking internally and getting over the fear of failure, but surrounding myself with wonderful mentors that I'm sure we'll talk about later really helped to move me forward. The other thing that I'll mention that was additionally a challenge was the technology. By the time I, moved into the space of becoming a solopreneur, because I started off wearing so many different hats, and was doing the accounting, the bookkeeping, the curriculum design, the marketing, the sales, all by myself, right? So like many other entrepreneurs on this webinar it's familiar with. So we're doing a lot by ourselves. And the tech was a big challenge in that when I would learn a piece of technology, by the time I would learn it, it would change again. So I had to learn how to learn faster and be smarter about how I would spend my time and what I would learn. So I couldn't read everything, and I'm an avid reader. I had to be discerning with that. I couldn't sign up for every course or do every free training or speak at every seminar. I just really had to be very intentional about how I spent my time moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And what Lemi was saying about getting over the fear of failure and really believing yourself, yeah, no, that's incredibly important. And I actually had a question that's not on the slide, but Lemi, I know that you were talking about mentors. Did you all have people who, is there someone you'd like to call out, or someone who really helped you with getting this, moving along? Were there any mentors?
We're going in the same order, or?
Oh, you can just shout it out if you have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Nancy Kerr. I just want to say thank you for Nancy Kerr. And she, if you are not familiar with her, she is the one who came up with the concept of read 20 minutes a day to get children reading. And I found my pathway led me to her. And she has just been one of the most incredible mentors that I've met in my entire life. Besides my mom and my dad, who have been an inspiration since birth.
I found out that when I was starting that tried to talk to other small business owners that I would know, like honestly, for example, my hairdresser, she's owned her own business for a long time, and we just talked, just about some operational things just to get my brain going there. I met with an accountant to make sure that I had all my books properly set up. I do my own books now, but just to make sure that I was set up in the beginning. And when I was in my 20s, I had a wonderful boss at Abbott Labs, and he was such a good mentor. And I still will say sayings that he would say to me in my head, like while I'm working, especially about being detail oriented and being a good writer. Like things that you might take for granted. Like as an engineer, I had to do a ton of writing, and you don't think about that, but like just how to transfer that to marketing and things like that. So I don't.
For me, like I said before, probably my dad has been my biggest mentor. I've gone to him with a lot of questions, a lot of crying, a lot of happy things. But also my manager at Victoria's Secret was amazing. I still in contact with her, and we, cheer each other on. And then a lot of the women that I've met early on in the beginning going to different fashion events, they just all happen to be women who own their own businesses and people that I collaborate with too. So it's always nice to go to them, especially during this. We're always texting each other like, let's get creative, let's figure out something, let's collaborate. So all of those women have been great.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. Our next slide is talking about the pandemic. Now, obviously, the pandemic has affected everyone in so many different ways, but how do you think the pandemic is affecting business owners in general, and how is the pandemic affecting you and your business?
Do you want to go, Lemi?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, this is something that we've been thinking about every day since we, found out about COVID-19. It has, well, what I've seen around me, I'll be honest, small businesses have been failing. I'll just kick it off that way. And in particular, 42% of African-American businesses have failed since the pandemic. 42% of African-American owned small businesses. That's almost half. So I'm included, my business is included in that particular, data set. So I've seen some, of my small business partners just, really have to close doors, and it's been saddening. I've also seen in the community where, there are small businesses that have been able to pivot and go from a mom pop, store, and move online in order to save themselves. We're really in a survival mode. We don't know what's coming forward in the next 3 months, 6 months. Every day we wake up as an entrepreneur, we've got to be sharp, we've got to be innovative, and we've got to think about making sure we are equipped for survival. So what I ended up doing in end of March, early April, is we started shifting our services. Again, we offered tutoring support. At that time, prior to the pandemic, it was in person. The tutoring support that we offered was about 90% in person. And what we ended up doing is just immediately, with no hesitation, went 100% remote. And we started reaching out to those that were in need of, just how do we keep children learning? So we reached out to the schools, the teachers, and said, hey, do you need any help? We're familiar with Zoom. At that point, my company had been on Zoom for 4 years. So we've been using Zoom for the past 4 years prior to the pandemic. We were familiar with the Zoom platform. We had some technical support in our team. And so we lend our services to teachers, administrators, principals, and even parents who needed a way to kind of transition from in-person learning to remote or distant learning. So we first thought of our community and who we could serve first. And I think by having that big idea of, the services that I offer is bigger than, just one person, right? It's my company, it's my vision. But when you become an entrepreneur and you take this pathway, somewhere down the road, you realize that what you're doing is impacting something much greater than yourself. And this pandemic was a big lesson, and basically provided the evidence and support for that. So by us helping those teachers, we were able to then receive some grants and some contracts on how we can then help students learn remotely. So we have been doing remote learning for colleges through their grant programs, for Chicago Public Schools. We also offer independent remote learning for parents who are interested. So we've provided just a variety of platforms just to be able to make sure that we pivot and that we stay relevant to what the needs are of the community. And we don't expect it to stay stagnant. We expect to keep shaping and keep moving as we go through this time of the pandemic.
I'll just quickly go, since Lemi really hit a lot of things. I think a lot of businesses are struggling. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think it's just going to get worse, unfortunately. I was fortunate, or I don't know if the word's fortunate, but my husband had a client in Wuhan in January when they started locking down. And so to see the way that China was locking down and how this colleague of his couldn't even travel or do anything, I knew that it was going to come here. I didn't feel confident that we were going to be immune to the virus. So also I have a sister that's a nurse. So she and I had been talking a lot, as she started to get COVID patients in the hospital. And we went full virtual from being 100% in person for all of our lessons to going full virtual within 3 days. So we just pivoted and made that switch, and all of our clients were amazing. And because it was just to have something that was a bit of normalcy as school shut down and everything shut down, they could still come and take their lessons. So we have a business model that was, somehow spared from this pandemic. If you're a restaurant or other business, I have a friend who owns a bra store. She's really hurting right now. So I don't think it's like just restaurants. I think there's a lot of businesses that are hurting and they're not getting any relief. And I think hopefully, I don't want to be so political, but hopefully our new administration will give some relief to these small businesses, or we're going to see just vast closings nationwide.
Yeah, I think for businesses just in general, it's been pretty bad. There are probably in a way smaller percentage businesses that are thriving, like Peloton has been thriving like crazy. Just businesses that were kind of riding steady have seen like a spike. And then, the opposite on the other end. For my business, we pivoted, like Sarah was saying, pretty early on. I would say end of March. I just decided to make everything virtual, and just start getting creative with ways to, still have the personal styling aspect, not be anything like Stitch Fix. Just still have that relationship because that's important to me with my company. So, yeah, it's just a tough time right now for businesses. And we did in-home shopping too, which only for people that were comfortable with it. So we would do like hand sanitize before you go in, everything you're doing now, wear a mask, still doing all of that. But yeah, it's been hard, and it's also given me time to reassess everything too, because I do have extra time. Put more time into blogging and doing like guides for my clients, and just connecting with other people in the industry that I'd never had time with to do before. So that's been, I would say, like the positive part of this.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, no, I think that, I mean, I saw this firsthand, but like Sarah's Lyriq music school, things changed like daily, and it was super impressive how people just transitioned so fast. And it was like incredible the way that business owners have to really think on their feet and be like, and have to respect the administration guidelines, but also make sure that their customers um, are getting, the support and the product that they're acquiring and asking for. I think it's a lot of work. And I think that we kind of touched on this, you know, in this question, but how have you adjusted your business to the new circumstances, and like going into specific detail on maybe like specific guidelines, or, how have you adjusted?
Katie, you want to go
I,
first?
Sure. I kind of just touched on that. I've gone all virtual, and the in-home thing has been huge. It's a lot more work for me, and I don't feel right upping the price for it, just because, times are tough for everyone, and I'd rather have a happy client and have a happy new client than no clients at all. So that's one of the major ways I've adjusted everything. Also, just reaching out to people in my email newsletters, just asking them to, if they have time, write a review. It's very helpful for small businesses and can really just make such a difference. And, like on Yelp and Google, people really, really look at that, and I get so many clients that way. So that's it. And you don't want to be like too desperate asking for things like that, but people get it. Like I have my clients checking in on me all the time, like thinking about you, hope everything's okay, what can I do to help? And I don't think we should feel any shame in asking for help, if they're willing to give it to us, because I know, especially as women, it can be hard to ask for help sometimes.
That's a good point. Well taken. Asking for help, and I'll keep that in the back of my mind because I'm somewhat of an introvert, and we want to appear strong, like we don't need any help. But you're right, in this time we should be asking for help, even writing a review. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Katie. I think with respect to adjustment, it's probably no secret, parents are really struggling during this time of the pandemic because of, having the balance working from home and then also parents taking on a more, serious role in their child's education with doing a lot of the support with the remote learning at home. So it's just been a lot for them to juggle. I say that because I don't know if any of you caught the interesting statistic that came out from NPR not too long ago, where over, I think it was 865,000 working women have left the workforce in the month of September alone, okay, to stay at home and work with their children. It was just too much for them to do both. But what's also interesting, because that's alarming, 865,000 in 1 month, and it's been millions since the pandemic started. And I'm talking about the United States. This trend is significant because when we look at the trend for men that are leaving the workforce, women are leaving the workforce 4 times faster than men. Okay, so we have, if that trend continues, we're going to have less role models that look like us in the workforce. And who will our young children look up to? So the role we play is so critically important. And I just want to thank Aniska and JEC of Chicago for putting this incredible event together where we can share our wisdom and encourage and inspire each other. And for Critical Thinking Child and myself, the adjustment has been about looking at the big picture, trying to be a visionary in terms of how we may have to continue to change. A lot of students didn't like the remote learning experience because they felt it was thrown on them. They didn't understand the tech. The parents were frustrated. So we're already starting off with what our service being tainted because they didn't have a good experience, although we had been doing remote learning for 2 years and our customers have a pleasant experience. But then how do we get new customers when they're already tainted? So that's a big, big issue for us now that we're 100% remote. So we're looking at other ways that we can service, such as becoming an academic coach. So we're moving into providing support and coaching support, which we feel is going to be needed for the parent and for the student to continue to learn, that will not just help them and tutor them in reading or math, but also help them with their learning journey and their learning experience so that it is a pleasant one. So we've got a bigger job than we ever imagined we'd do, thanks to this pandemic and this situation.
Yeah, I was just going to mention one thing about the strategy. So, I was fortunate enough to be accepted into Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program, and maybe some of you have also done that. And so I'm doing that this fall, and I found that that's just keeping my mind going to grow the business and develop a growth opportunity. And my growth opportunity is post-pandemic, like we'll have to be in person, but it's given me something to hope for and to be excited about and to refocus my mind on the business and really take a look. So that's a program that Goldman Sachs offers to small businesses, and it's free. It's like a mini MBA.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that businesses have had to adjust so much due to the current circumstances. I also wanted to go back to Lemi's point of, women in the workplace. I want to acknowledge that, there's a huge gender disparity. Women are not getting equally as paid. And, there's been new policies trying to change that, but there's just a huge disparity. And my mom left the workplace when I was like, I think 5 years old, because for her it was, she was a YMCA teacher, and for her it was either like homeschooling me because I wanted to be like homeschooled for some reason, but it was for her it was either still being a YMCA teacher or homeschooling me, and she chose to homeschool me. And then eventually I went on to do school and stuff, and she's not gone back into the workplace, into the workforce. And I think there's much to be said on how much a mother can be worth, and how many responsibilities come with being a mother. And then also just acknowledging that there's much to be done about the whole women in the workplace movement. But then going back to COVID and businesses, I just had another question as well. Are there any positives about this whole like virtual shift? I know that Katie had mentioned some positive changes before, but have you seen like a bright side to this at all, if there have been any?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, for us, like it opened up a whole new business model of doing virtual lessons. So there's certain students that might never want to come in because it's just not as convenient for them. Adult students, certain kids that might want to take multiple lessons a week. So in one sense, it got us like just kicked us in the butt to like get our tech together and be able to offer these services. So it's been good. It actually has been very eye-opening for us.
For us, it's given us the opportunity to forge partnerships. I think, by joining some smaller communities. So I've joined a few Facebook communities for small businesses, and we've just been finding people who are super supportive. I'll give one example. So we mainly at Critical Thinking Child, we focusing on academics. And what we did this summer is we partnered with National Kids Gym, based out in Philadelphia and the East Coast. And that's a business also impacted by the pandemic. You can imagine they were working with schools and going in and teaching gymnastics. So I found the owner, Katie Genta, on a call, and I reached out to her, much like we're in Zoom now, and sent her a chat message and said, hey, we might want to get together. I think I have an idea. And so for my summer camp, we infused academics, and then we also brought in movement and social and emotional learning. And so we partnered with National Kids Gym to provide the Zoomnastics experience. And the kids just loved it. And so when we look for ways to be creative and forge partnerships, and I'm looking for more partners like that. And I think in a way, it's helping us to stick together. National Kids Gym is owned by a female as well. So we're all kind of sticking together and thinking of creative ways to survive during this time of crisis.
Yeah, just going back to what I said, it's given me more time to kind of think about what if I should rebrand, if I should, change my social media look, just things I didn't think about before. I revamped my website. I changed my blog. I worked on my app that I have for my business, which does like our lookbooks. So all of that has been great, and just connecting with people to help each other out. I think that's been really, really nice, is like the support of women in the Chicago area, other women business owners, and just getting positive feedback from people too. I do style videos now for my Instagram, and I did not have time for that before. So it's nice in this negative space that we're in. There's been a lot of positive feedback from people, and just a lot of people that I think kind of going on the other end, other people have time to reach out to you. So they're taking more time to like look at things and be more supportive of each other, because we're like, everyone says we're all in this together. So it's kind of cool. But for my business, doing it virtual is extremely, extremely hard. So I'm looking forward to when this is done to get back to being one-on-one with my clients.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, shifting to everything virtually is definitely a new spin on things. But yeah, like what Katie said, during tough times, things can be tough, times are tough, obviously, but people are there for each other. And I think, that's what keeps people moving essentially at the end of the day. And just thinking about things in a different light, it can definitely impact a lot. And so on to the next slide, talking about, do you think being a female entrepreneur, do you think being a female being a female entrepreneur, does that change things? Yeah, and what are your, and from being a female, do you think there's a disparity, in being a male entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur? What are your experiences with this? Do you think there's a disparity?
Sure, I'll start off. So I come from a family. My dad and my brother were engineers, and my sister was a nurse, and my mom and other sister were a teacher. And so when I decided to get an engineering degree, a lot of it was to just prove to everyone that I was smart enough and able enough to get a non-traditional female role. So I graduated from college in 1998. And I think at that time, 30% of my class was women, which was pretty decent at that time. I would say that I think since I've had that attitude forever, I like take zero, like I'm gonna not swear on the forum, but I don't take any, and I just try to authentically stand up for myself by being just very smart in the room and just knowing my stuff and being able to have a conversation with people from all walks of the world. I also think that just working with mostly men has helped me just to continue to advocate for myself. When I was opening my business, I did have, I would say, an discrimination, and it could have been more of he didn't like my business, but I was trying to rent a space, and he was like, "Have you ever done this before?" And I was like, "None of your business," but like he didn't want to rent to me because I was a new entrepreneur. So basically, I ended up just buying my own space because I didn't want to have to deal with a landlord that was not going to treat me well. So I do think, though, that there's a positive because I think there are women entrepreneurs and they do lift each other up. And I think that's a really big positive. So I'll let the other candidate forum speakers speak. Sorry.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, speaking from experience, it's been definitely a challenge being female and a minority, Black, especially when it came to just funding and getting seed money to even, launch the startup and do the pitch and really just know the roadmap on what you should be doing. Because you could wake up one day and say, I want to be an entrepreneur and have a great idea and fill out all the paperwork that's required to, incorporate the business. But there is another part of it that is almost like, from my perspective, was um, like unspoken, because I would go around to other entrepreneurs and later find out that I needed to know this, or there was money here. So for me, it was very frustrating because I just ended up bootstrapping way too much than I really feel that I, should have and should have received funding sooner. But in the end, because I would persevere and I didn't give up, there were times where I have to be honest with you, where I wanted to throw in the towel. Year 3, year 5, I may wake up tomorrow and want to do the same thing, but I don't. I just persevere. I keep going because the next day it can get better and there's hope. I don't know if it was Katie or Sarah who said it, but I like that comment about, being hopeful. It's such a powerful word. So I wake up and I know that if I keep connecting through wonderful forums like this and meeting wonderful female entrepreneurs, that my outlook for my business and my dream is only going to get better. So I don't want to give up, even though it feels like giving up. And there's such a large disparity when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to finances, when it comes to networking. But I'm not giving up because of that disparity.
That was perfectly said. Because I can totally relate to that, and I'm sure every entrepreneur, female or not, can relate to that feeling of wanting to give up. For me in my industry, I've been pretty lucky, I would say, for not, because I don't deal with very many men. I do have male customers, but I think it's more the field that I got into was more of what everyone was kind of judging me on, like, oh, you're gonna shop for people and out their closet. That sounds silly. Like, why would someone need that? That sounds like they could do it themselves. So I had so much criticism from people. My guy friends would just make fun of me when I first started, just sending me every little thing they could, making fun of, fashion and whatever, and fashion shows. But I actually did have one of my guy friends recently say, like, you're killing it. And I made fun of you for so long because I thought this was like a crazy thing to do for like a real adult job. But so that was kind of cool. I think the only thing I would say being a female in business is my male clients seem to be, not all of them, some of them are more hesitant when I arrive at their home or meet them. They're kind of like, oh, like what can you really teach me? Or, just they have a lot of questions, and you just kind of have to prove them wrong. And just like Sarah said, just show them how smart you are and that you do know your stuff. And just confidence is the key to being successful, for sure. One of the keys.
Yeah, no, I found it interesting, and I think I've probably seen this where like people are a little more hesitant when it comes to like female entrepreneurs, like, oh, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Or, a little bit more hesitant. But I also like what Sarah said about one positive is that we built a community. And there's so much to be said about like women lifting each other up and kind of like a sisterhood. And I think essentially we're lifting each other up here by just talking, by raising a conversation. So yeah, and then the next question is, what are some tips you would give to young entrepreneurs, especially girls, but just in general, I guess?
I think it's really important to not forget that you need to be passionate about what you're doing. I think without having passion, it's you're not going to want to keep working hard on it every day, like every hour of the day. So I think it's really important to choose that, and then also to realize that you're probably going to have a couple careers in your life, and then that's okay. I think I don't think I realized that when I was younger, that like it was totally okay to start somewhere and then do something totally different, and then maybe I'll have a third career. And so that's my advice.
I would add to that to learn the tech. The technology is only going to get more sophisticated, more innovative, and it would be great to have just to kind of get comfortable with it, to be honest with you. So the way in which I work at that comfort level is because initially I had a structure where I would pass on the technology aspect of my business and structure, meaning web design, the different plugins that are all behind the scenes, those type of things, how to connect with e-commerce and all these things, just pass the buck and give it to someone who was better than me, smarter than me, and could do it faster than me. That was a big mistake. That was a big mistake. And I learned that from an entrepreneur who gave me a big lesson that I'll share with you. He said, you have to look at the world differently, Lemi, because this is one of my moments when I wanted to throw in the white towel. And he said, think of the Model T car back in the 1900s. When that car came out, it was so unique and so innovative, and not many people had that car. But if you had the car and if something was wrong with it, you got under the hood, you tinkered around, and you fixed it. So think of it like this. We're in an age where things are going to be new. The tech is going to be new. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to get under the hood. You have to learn enough. And then he said over time, when cars started being mass produced, then we went to mechanics who were expert in fixing cars, well, like the modern day, like it is today. Well, right now, in the space of technology, we are still under the hood, and we need to stay under the hood. And we may be under the hood for my lifetime because technology is rapidly changing. And so that being said, once he told me that and shared that analogy, I was more
She's frozen.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think her internet cut out. Let's give her a moment.
I don't know, Katie, did you want to add to that while we wait for Lemi?
Yeah, so I'll just say quick, I think just not letting anyone tell you it's a bad idea or that you can't do it. That was the first thing that happened to me. Right, was I was graduating college. I just told my advisor what I wanted to do, and she just said, "That's a terrible idea. I don't know why you would do something like that. You need to at least go work for another corporate retail company for 5 years before you do that." And I was so offended. So it also gave me drive to just do it even more and even better. And then I think a year into my business, I was at a fashion show here in Chicago, and she would come down from Milwaukee sometimes. And I was in the front row of the fashion show covering it for my blog, and she was in the back. And I was like, this is a karma moment. And then also just going back to like what Sarah said with passion, you really have to, live and breathe your job. If you don't have that passion for it, it's not going to be successful. There's so many people that are like, well, I can do what you do. That seems easy, but that's easy if you're working for someone else, not if you're running the whole business yourself. So I would say, just as corny as it sounds, follow your dreams and don't let anyone tell you you can't do it.
Great. Lemmy, do you want to finish what you were saying? You were just cut out in the middle.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. It seemed like it rebooted, but thank you for that. I was just wrapping it up by saying, when you learn something first, no matter how difficult it might be, you do need to get some general understanding of it, and then that will allow you to find the right talent to complement and supplement your business. So it's all about talent and recruitment and finding the right person, not to necessarily duplicate. In some cases, to replace what you used to do, because as entrepreneurs, we're going to wear so many hats. So in order for you to get out from under, the 12 hats that you have to wear, you have to be able to understand it and then be able to pass it on. But in order to pass it on effectively, you really need to have some level of understanding to find the right person, and find that expert that's suitable for your business. And that has been such a valuable lesson that I want to share to everyone.
I couldn't agree more, Lemi. I honestly couldn't. It's awesome.
Great. Yeah. So we're actually out of time, but I do want to save 5 minutes for Q&As. So if any of you have questions, you can unmute. You can unmute or you can type it in the chat. And then also you can ask the question to everyone or like individually as well. Yeah, I'm having a little trouble accessing the chat. So if someone if someone already put something in the chat, you can start answering it.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat. I guess if no one has a question, I have a question for you guys. Which is who joins the Junior Economics Club? I mean, that's pretty crazy. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely great. We're basically from all across the city, from CPS, non-CPS, and we're just basically, high schoolers who are interested in economics, business, entrepreneurship, and just really like instilling and just kind of, becoming aware of the world. And I think that, even if we're not academically going to pursue entrepreneurship, economics, or business, I think it does instill like qualities in you. And by like attending these kinds of forums, I think that we learn so much. And I think that JEC has so much to give. And by these forums and by participants like you, it's just so enriching. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? Again, you can just write it in the chat. I do want to share one last screen, but that's just for the end. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I have one more question for everyone. Sorry, I know I'm turning the tables, but does anyone here have like a desire to be a future entrepreneur? Like, do you have some ideas of like a company you would want to start? Like, you would want to lay that on us?
Oh, there we go.
I would want to do biotech, so like something along those lines.
Izzy?
Hi, I'm Izzy, and I want to become an entrepreneur so I could start my own fashion line and work in either Vogue.com or high fashion. That's one of my interests. I have a fashion blog, and I'm just trying to, do my thing. I've always been interested in fashion, always wanted to give tips, and I have so many ideas, and yeah.
Izzy, feel free to reach out to me if you ever want any tips or anything or any kind of help. I would love to help you out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I see a future intern.
Yeah, for sure. Does anyone else want to share out or any other questions? Let's give it a second. Okay. If you all have no other questions, also feel free to type it in the chat whenever. But I guess we're just gonna be wrapping up. I'm gonna present one last slide just for just about our next upcoming event. Hold on one second. It's basically our mandatory event, Government Embracing Diversity and Inclusion. It is tomorrow. And then please follow the Junior Economic Club on Insta. It's at JEC Chicago. And then you can also visit our site at junioreconomicclub.org. If you are not part of JEC, I would highly recommend it. It is an amazing club. And if you would like to see more events like this and meet more inspirational people, I would genuinely recommend, and I would totally recommend you to become a JEC member. And it would also be great if you guys could fill out this feedback form, just so we can know how we did on this event and any other feedback you'd like to give us. But yeah, I mean, we would like to thank our guests, our panelists, Sarah Ma, Lemi Erinkitola, and Katie Schuppler, again, for taking the time to speak with us today. I think we got just so much info and just kind of like, an in-depth perspective on how it's like and what it's like to be a female entrepreneur and the struggles that it takes during a pandemic to keep businesses afloat. Because we know that, the struggle is widespread and that, it's something that we're all facing together. But we also got positives out of this. Most importantly, how we're lifting each other up and how women are lifting each other up. But yeah, no, I'd like to thank you for attending. I'd like to thank all the participants for showing up to this event. I hope you had a wonderful time. But yeah, thank you again so much for coming.
Thank you for
Thank you for
hosting.
having us. Thank you for having us. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.